Hello and welcome to the Fantasy EFL Show, your home of all things fantasy football in the EFL, the Game Week 3 review, the Game Week 4 preview that is sponsored by That Millwall Podcast, the show made by the fans for the fans. As you can see, I do not have my co-host, Mr. Ben Green. He's somewhat engaged this evening, but who we do have is the third guest in our guest segment. It's someone that we identified very early on that we wanted to be part of this venture with us, and we're glad that we do have them. It's the OG Sheffield Wednesday podcast, the Wednesday Week. And I've got Dan. How are you?
How's it going? You all right? Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you very much for being here, mate. Really glad to have you on. And we'll. So how we're going to work tonight, ladies and gents, we're going to go over Game Week 3 for both of us, Game Week 4 as well. We'll have a look at the league table, and then we'll finish up with what I'm sure Sheffield Wednesday fans will be more interested in. There's a bit of Q&A on Sheffield Wednesday and a look ahead to the weekend's fixtures. So we're going to start, I think, with the guest, as that's polite. We'll start with your team that you had out for Game Week 3. You ended up with 34 points in Game Week 3. Total of 122 overall for the first 3 weeks. Are you happy with that?
No, I feel it's a bit average, and I tell you what, with it being a podcast as well, obviously we've got different sides of opinion. So the way that our colleagues do it via our group chat is we sit there and we'll go, right, you're naming a midfield player today, you're naming a forward, you're naming the two teams that we're picking and things like that. And I didn't clock it at the time, but going through it, we've put Sheffield United's Kiefer. What are we doing? I mean, I know what
Kaminsky in there.
In it, what we doing?
Yeah, looking at it, and not one player over double digits. Obviously, Kaminsky as well. I believe he was he suspended? I believe he come in, so you might have to crack the whip. But talk to us on the pick. So, who was your pick, Ardies? Who did you really root for to put in this team?
I tell you what, right? When it comes to fantasy league, especially this one specifically, you can pick and choose the players, and I like doing it with who they've got that week. So you try and, just like putting a bet on a Saturday, you try and pick who's going to be losing, who's going to be winning, stuff like that. So I thought Chesterfield are doing all right. I'll put Will Grigg in, and the other one for me was Mark McGuinness, because Mark McGuinness was on loan with us season before last, and we loved him. Oh God, we loved him. When Cardiff recalled him, we were like, oh God, he's going to be a great player, because he fell out of favour with the then Cardiff manager. They got a new gaffer in. He called him back, and then now he's made a big move. And you kind of like, well, it can't be rubbish, right? It might be the one of those big debut players where you come in and he might be the difference and have that furore around him, and they go, oh yeah, he played really well. He played a solid 8 out of 10 there, and he got 3 points.
I suppose looking at the two games that you picked as well, Sunderland and Notts County, did you a bit of a turn there as well. But I'm looking at, you're probably the first guest that we've had on in the very limited amount of guests that we've had so far that hasn't gone with Alfie May. And I'm sure that you've been wanting to go with Alfie May. So someone had to have bite the bullet and not picked Alfie May.
Well, Alfie May's one of them players where you kind of like, it's like doing a Premier League fantasy team, isn't it? Where if you put Haaland in, you kind of go, it feels like cheating, and you don't feel like you've done it properly. There's an element of snobbery with it, don't get me wrong. But Alfie May as well, is he like, the reason I've avoided him this season was when he was at Cheltenham and he was bagging goals, right? And he was bagging them left, right, and centre. You're thinking to yourself, the way they set up is literally just to feed Alfie May. That's why he scored all these goals. He can't be that good. He's not that good. You know what I mean? It's just the way Cheltenham is set up. Turns out he's bagging goals.
And I think he's the most selected player in the entire EFL at the moment. Kayimbe's an interesting one as well. I went with Kayimbe a few times. I think Watford have been a real surprise. I think they was one team that many, including myself, identified that could have a real bad season this season. Tom Cleverley, not really a seasoned manager. He took the job over. A lot of problems Watford have got. They've had a lot of outgoings, brought in some good players, but Kayimbe is very interesting. He's totaled 31 points over the course of the EFL season so far. That's third. He's only
Hmm.
beaten by the Sunderland defender Clerkin and Major, who we'll come on to in a moment. So
Hmm.
Brownhill the same. He's top four in points. So you've set up a really good team there to get some points. But as you said, if you look at the fixtures, you've got a couple that went against each other there. It's it's fantasy football in it, and none of us are going to be experts. None of us are going to have the winning
Tell you what, if
formula.
I knew football the way it was gonna go every week, I'd be a millionaire every week. But instead, I end up paying my weekly subscription to Sky Bet and then doing it every week after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree. But 34 points. So where do you sit at the moment in terms of your league table? How has your league table gone off so far leading up to game week 4?
What you mean? You mean the one that we're operating
Yeah, the
ourselves?
one that you're doing. Yeah, how are you doing there?
Well, actually, Stevie, who you've spoken to in terms of our
Yeah,
match preview coming up, he's at the top of our league, and out of
he
about
did allude
130.
to that. He did allude to
Oh,
that.
he's not stopped
He
bloody
dropped
talking
that in
about it.
there. He did.
He's,
He dropped that in there. I'm calling you out,
he's
Stevie. You dropped that in there.
yeah, he's not stopped mentioning it. You know, it's his biggest achievement outside having his daughters, and um, and then I think I'm like 40 odd because I keep chopping and changing. I find it really difficult having the opportunity to change the players every week.
Yeah,
I'm not growing up enough not to do it. Like Brownhill's an interesting one because in my team personally, I've got I've got Brownhill in there, and I'm like, I dropped him, then I put him back in, then I dropped him. I'm like, yeah, but I can change. It should be
yeah,
all right. And then in terms of this team here that we're talking about, you know, I'm looking at it for game week 4, and we've just had a complete turnaround in terms of the podcast team that we've put out. So, you know, I just hope we've changed the goalkeeper. Oh, we have. That's all right. That's all
yeah.
right.
And we will come on to that because it is a complete contrast to last
Yeah.
week. So being the gaffer, Dan, I imagine you've cracked the whip there a little bit, mate, and you've had a few choice words at half time, and things have changed.
Yeah, yeah. Keep it together, 0-0, lads. Keep it tight. You
That's
know,
that's it. That's it. We'll,
all
we'll
the
look at
all the
my
bases.
we'll look at my team now. So game week 3, it's not. It's been pretty similar story to me. I have not got off and running. I'm sitting in the fantasy EFL show league
Mhm.
mid-table at the moment. I'm not really progressing. One player who has helped me is Alfie May, as we just
Of
spoke about.
course. Yeah, yeah. And
He's been a
captain him as
mainstay
well.
and captaining him as well. When he picked up 22 points, he just seems to not really do much. But when the ball's in the box, he's there all the time. And he and it. Why am I going to take him out? And I think this is you alluded to the problem that it's different with the fantasy Premier League one is because you have to actually use money. You have to use
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
value
yeah.
that they set out to pick these players. And I think if they was to adapt that into the EFL fantasy, it would be a hell of a lot different because Alfie May's not going to move from my team. I expect Birmingham to set record points in League One this year. The amount of money they
Yeah.
spent, players they brought in, he's not going to change. Um, I did mix it up with my midfield. I kept KMB in there because what we spoke about with Watford start to the season. I went with Chong because Luton are another team that I thought Luton, under the style of play that they play, and Edwards being the manager he is, really, really rate him as a manager. I thought they would bounce straight back up. They've really, really struggled to find themselves in the bottom 2 start of the season. Chong picked up 2 points.
Yeah,
Not a good return.
Chong's been a bit of a letdown this season, hasn't he? Because like, bear in mind, we've all bought Footy Manager 22 at some point, right? And we've all sat there, and Tatty Chong's one of those wonder kids that comes in, and you're like, yeah, he's gonna do bits. And if you're a Championship club, Chong's signing number 1 to make on FM 22. And then since he's, you know, I think he was at Man U, wasn't he? And then for some reason that kind of lives in your head a little bit, where you're like, I've unearthed one here, lads. I've unearthed one.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
what's coming. Chong in the Championship's going to tear it up, and he didn't. And he hadn't.
No,
And I'm I'm a little bit disappointed with him. But there's still that little nugget where you sat there thinking, this is going to come good. It's got to come good. Or I don't know, Bull.
no, exactly. And I think that the fact that we just said that you can just keep picking these players and there's no financial
Yeah.
implication in terms of playing the game, it will prompt you to try and stick with these players a little bit more. One
Mm.
player that has been a namestay in my team that is not going to be in any teams anymore, or I believe will be left out of the squad this weekend, is Vitinho of Burnley.
Yeah.
Um, big player gets with the way that they do the point system in the fantasy EFL, the defensive points as well as the attacking points, the interceptions, the goals,
Hmm.
and he's basically an attacking winger in lining up in defence. Is it everyone's dream, surely?
Yeah, because I had Vitinho and the kid at Coventry. What's his name? I can't remember his bloody name now. And he bagged the other
I'll
week,
find
and
you.
I had them both in my team, and I stayed with them, and and then I and then I'm thinking this is the week where I'm gonna have to change it. And he's another one of those players that I've kicked out, then put back in, then kicked out and put back in again. You know what I mean? And yeah, I kind of I don't know. There's like an overwhelming urge just to go. We'll just change it all again. Let's just took
Yeah.
the baby out the out with the bathwater. Let's just start again.
Yeah, I think Van Ilwick, I think was the guy who's looking for
Van Newick, that's him. Yeah,
the
that's him.
Coventry's defender. Yeah, again, very good. But yeah, Vitinho is going to be a massive loss for everybody if he does get his move away. It sounds like that's going to happen, which will prompt a lot of changes because there's some real good defenders having good seasons that you don't expect. Someone that I did expect to have a big impact was Ademi from. I won't say it. I won't say it out loud, but the team across the road, shall we say, hasn't done anything. Got me 0 points last week. I don't even know if he played in the game, but yeah, with clubs that are coming down, you're not too sure whether these players are going to move on. They've got the same with Gus Hamer; he could be moving on as well. There's bids
Hmm.
coming for him, so I think that fantasy will start to settle as the transfer window ends. I think that's in any fantasy anyway. I don't think I'm telling people to suck eggs there, but the one thing that I am pleased with and I do like is the picking of the two teams.
Hmm.
Now, you can only pick them 5 times a season, which I wish you could have done that with the players. But then that
Yeah.
would have just ended up that the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season, everyone in the championship would have to pick to League Two players. That's just a reality. That's not a dig at League Two, but we stick with what we know. I went with Luton, who picked up 0 points. I went with Leeds United at the beginning of the season, who picked me up 0 points. I'm slowly running out of the clubs you expect to pick up points of being
Yeah.
able to pick them again, and that's going to be a
Yeah.
problem.
I don't know if it is, right, because early part of the season, it's a free for all, and everybody's going to
Yeah.
be picking the same teams as you. Everybody's going to be picking Leeds. They're all going to be picking Burnley, probably picking Coventry as well because they've gone through a bit of a resurgence. But what the Championship always seems to have every year is that team that comes out of nowhere, just blast away into the playoffs, blast away up the league, and then they sit there in the Premier League the following year going, how did we, how did we get here? How did
Yeah.
how did that happen? Nobody was picking Luton at the start of the year that they went up. You know what I mean? Nobody was
Yeah.
picking Coventry. So, as the league settles, as it starts to kick in and the momentum starts, yeah, everybody will have wasted their Leeds and their Burnleys, and then they'll be picking their fingers crossed Sheffield Wednesdays.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that is something that I'm going to have to listen back to because I've fallen fate and fallen into that trap of picking them teams very early on,
Hmm.
purely just to try and get myself a quick head start, get out there,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
when
yeah,
everyone's playing catch up, you go down to your other leagues and you start scouting out a bit more when everyone else is doing the rushing around. But
yeah.
we're gonna come on to game week 4 now. We're going to take a look at my team straight away, and we'll finish on yours before we look at some players to watch. But I've completely mixed it up. I'm fed up of being middle of the pack. I'm fed up of getting the 30 to 50 points, not getting the big hitter other than Alfie May. I've stuck with the same formation. I've gone with a 2-3-1. I think that
Hmm.
is the best formation. I like having more midfielders because you do get the defensive attributes as well. If some of them are a holding midfielder, might pop up with a goal, for instance. But I've really mixed it up, and I haven't got much of a championship showing in my team this week. I've gone
Hmm.
with Crowley, the Notts County midfielder. I've captained him as well. Had a real good start to the season, averaging 9.7 points a week, 18 points last week. And he's only 3.6% selected. So surely that's got to pay off for me at some point,
Yeah,
no?
there's a part when you've got like that percentage selected thing makes you a little bit more of a craft beer guy. You know what I mean? That
Yeah,
guy
I
that
love that. Yeah,
Yeah, that guy that corrects everybody in the pub going, I think you'll find it's actually pronounced Bruno Fernandes. You know, that type of guy, yeah, I've just picked a midfielder from Christ knows where, and he's just got 1.6% selection, so,
yeah,
you're welcome. You know what I mean? But I think
absolutely
the one
agree.
that stands out for me on your team here is Sadlier from Wycombe.
Yeah,
Because like I said at the top of the show, I try to go for who they're playing. Try to, who's the opposition. Now, I don't think you've picked a bad player there, and Wickham are a decent team at that level, but they're playing Blackpool, and they're on the verge of something. I don't know what, but they have the opportunity to start moving because they sign well, but for some
yeah,
reason never seem to pull it off. When they loaned George Byers from ourselves last season, you were kind of like, hang on, they're doing something there, and I
yeah.
feel that's got potential for a score draw. So sadly, there could be absolute damp squib 0-0, but I don't think it will. That's got a potential to be a 2-all draw, and then he could get a couple of assists on that.
No, absolutely, and it was the same reason behind my Belongo pick as well. Look, one of the
Mhm.
best defenders in League One at the moment, averaging 9.3 points a game. Again, only 2.1% selected. Only got 4 points last week, but I'm thinking out of the box here with an opponent that they've got, Cambridge. The same with why I've gone with Jones at the back. Charlton for me at the moment. I mean, that's them and Birmingham are rivaling for the
Mm.
most signings, I think, and the most money spent.
Yeah, yeah.
It's quite a Nathan Jones. I don't believe he's a League One manager. I think he's a Championship manager, and I firmly believe that we should have hired him. He was in the running when we hired Joe Edwards. I do like Nathan Jones. His character kind of suits Millwall a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
Look at that in a positive or a negative
Yeah,
way.
to be fair,
Um,
yeah, Nathan Jones is a proper fit for Millwall, isn't he? You know
yeah,
that
shit
that
house.
I
Let's just put
yeah,
it
I don't
out
wanna
there.
use
That's
the
it.
phrase, but no one likes us, we don't care type of vibe, on it. You know what I mean? And I kinda
Exactly that.
they go hand in hand really well.
Yeah, no, it does, and look, I'm not going to wish him all the best at Charlton Athletic because it's a big rival, so I don't wish him all the best at all. But I have
That's all.
picked Charlton to win this weekend. They've started really well. Reading, to my surprise, have actually started okay as well with losing probably their best player Aziz to Millwall, and the takeover issues that they've had. They've had a lot of issues in the transfer department, in the board with player wages. It's just been a mess, as you see
Mhm,
sadly with some of these clubs that are run this way. This is what happens. But they seem to be trending up a little bit. Both clubs, Charlton and Reading, for similar issues. But yeah, gone with Charlton and Stockport because I just fancy. You just look at a team, you go, I fancy them this week, and you don't know what it is. And I haven't actually got any tactical prowess to go into about why I picked Stockport. I just looked at Stockport. I looked at the fixture coming up, and I thought they're going to do all right this week. You
yeah,
know,
they
they
can pull that
9
one off.
points last week. Yeah,
And
they
that's
I
what
think
the
they
early
can.
part of the season is, isn't it? That's what it is.
Yeah,
Just chuck some
exactly.
shit, see what lands before it all settles out, and we find out where it all kind of filters out to.
Exactly that. But I'm sitting on 154 points at the moment, and I really need to pick this up. Or I'm going to have to get in the dressing room. I might have to change the formation up because maybe I do need two up front. I'm not too sure, but that brings me on to your game week 14. You
Yep.
haven't gone. You have gone two up front. You've gone with a 2-2-2.
Yep.
Um, Wholesale changes. You have brought the elephant in the room in. You have captained him.
Yep.
James is your vice captain. Talk to us about your team then. So why these wholesale changes? Who was your pick? Who did you go to? I know that you have
So
your seven.
Chirkin was mine, or Sirkin, however you pronounce it, the geezer from Sunderland. We got our backsides handed to us by Sunderland, and he was playing more of an advanced role. Sometimes you get those gems where, in fantasy league, where they're down on the game as a midfielder, but they're playing up front every week.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
Sirkin for me is one of them where he's playing in midfield, but he's down as a defender, and I'm like, hang on a minute, this could
Like a
this could work
Vitinho.
in my favour, yeah. And he's in a midfielder like these three kids. I think they've just lost one actually, but their midfield made ours look pedestrian. They were so very good, and that he scored a goal where they had a free kick from the training ground and played it across the box, and he had still plenty to do to nod it in. And I thought, goal scoring defender on a game like this. This is Radhi Jaidi times.
The
This
Ching.
is old school. This, you know what I mean. This is what you want.
Yeah.
So Jerkin's mine. Dan James was a mutual decision between a couple of us because again, we got our backsides handed to us by Leeds United. They were so very good, and
Yeah.
I didn't realise just how good Dan James was. I was,
So
watching it in the
fast. He's
flesh.
just so
You're like,
fast.
That kid can move, and I
Yeah.
feel like if he performs that week, I think he's going to stay there every week.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And someone like Madger as well started the season really, really hot.
Mhm.
We went to mention him. Coming to West Brom on fire, got that hat trick. Went just ever so slightly quiet, but that's a move that is going to get you some points, I believe, partnered with Alfie May. You've got Hamer in there. We spoke about Hamer in
Both.
terms of him. Yeah, and I was just going to say he does best of both worlds, doesn't he? Defensive attributes, his attacking attributes, assists, goals, and he has got some. Is he going to be a Sheffield United player by the end of
By the
tomorrow?
weekend.
That's the key.
Yeah, that's
That's
it,
the
isn't
thing,
it?
and we find out he's playing elsewhere, and then you have to scramble because the matchup might not be there, which is why I can't wait for the transfer window to end, and
Yeah,
we'll
it's
talk
ruining
about
this
that.
game, isn't it?
It certainly is. Yeah, it's becoming difficult, and that's probably my excuse for why I'm so bad at the game. I'm putting it down to the transfer window. It's not down to me just being
Yep,
useless. It
yep.
is down to the transfer window.
It's the
But
window.
no, look,
The
great
window.
team. I fully expect that team with the matchups that you've got as well. Dan James v Hull is just a recipe for disaster for Hull. Wigan against Alfie May, I just can see a really good
That's it.
points total there. So talk to us about your two teams that you've selected. You've gone with Burnley, who have sort of stuttered, lost a lot of players.
They have, but I mean, don't get me wrong. I find it really frustrating that Burnley are a yo-yo club. In that same vein, you'd put them in with Fulham and Norwich, and
Yeah,
those teams that seem to play the parachute payments really well. But because of
yeah.
those parachute payments, they've always got a decent squad, and it really annoys me because Burnley are a really small, insignificant club, and for some reason they're
Could
bouncing
not
up and
agree more.
down the. Like fuck off, Burnley. You know what I mean? We like there's teams like West Brom, Middlesbrough, and you'd even put Millwall and Sheffield Wednesday in that bracket that are in this shitty league year in year out, having a tear up, having a fight, having an absolute Barney, and then somebody always comes and ruins it because they've come down with all their money, and you're like, go
Yeah,
on, bugger off.
and
So
we've
that's
added
why I put
Luton
them
to
in.
that list now.
Yeah, and they can get in the bin and all now. You know what I mean? So that's why Burnley are in because they've got all the money and they can do something about it. But again, Chesterfield and Burnley are two teams that you would expect to go quite high up in their respective leagues. So
Yeah, totally
it
agree.
just makes sense to get them in this early. But I get in the bin, Burnley. Just tiny clubs like Brentford and Bournemouth and Brighton and other clubs beginning with B playing in the Premier League. Sod off. Let's have the big clubs in the big leagues. Come on now. You're just tiny, insignificant clubs that are having a good few seasons. When Bournemouth went down, I did a little cheer, and then they went back up
I
because they
know.
had all the parachute money. Sod off.
Share the wealth is what I say.
In
Share
it.
the wealth, or just
In it.
start afresh and let us have a go
Yeah.
for once. The
Let's have a
clubs that
pop.
haven't got any money, yeah, no, agree.
Yeah.
No, look, great picks there. I fully expect. I can see the changes. I can see you've had a word at half time with Stevie and the rest of them, and you're going to sort it out. I'm going to look at the league table now. Now I don't actually know where you sit in our league table, but we've discussed your league table and where you sit. Let's
Hmm.
have a look at the league table for the Fantasy EFL show because there has been some changes there. I've got this on my screen. I appreciate that you haven't done, but just for the viewers' references, in for a shock. You are back at the top of the league. You're still sitting there, sitting pretty on 195 points. With
Hmm.
take it easy level with your 195. There's only 5 points difference between fourth and first place. With the Elf Barmy making up the top five and Lisa Scott Leeds pushing that sixth spot, who's been hovering around. Our very own Greensy Lions has dropped right down to 12th now. He's dropped out of the top five, who was a name set in the top five. And then you've got myself, Only Cruz, and also sitting in 31st out of the top 100 that we have. Not doing very well on 154 points. That's been the league table to now. Not much to update to it, and we'll review that after game week 4. But because I'm not in it, I don't really want to give it much more thought, to be
Yeah,
honest
no,
with you.
sod it. Although
But
great
there you
shout
go.
on Lisa Scott Leeds. That is a great one. Which ones have stuck out to you? Which ones are your favourites?
I thought mine was really good, and then I looked at everybody else's, and I thought, no, it's just not not very good anymore. I like Jaffet Cakes, Jaffet
Yep,
Tanganga.
good one.
That's
Good one.
pretty funny. Um, I like Gorilla in the Mist. That is
Yeah.
someone I know who is nicknamed Gorilla. 2SA, another Millwall reference there. A pinch of salt, just some. I like stupid ones that don't even have to have a reference to a player or a team. Just something really, really stupid, like immaculate, which is a Mark who's a player for Millwall. So there is some
Tell you what,
throw
in
the
our
kitchen sink. It's
brilliant
just another
in
one.
our league, there's a lot of roll references like sausage rolls, roll with it. You know what I mean? Because
I
because
love
of
that,
our
and that's
gaffer.
brilliant.
One that I used to pick was Barry Banan's Nanan. That used to get an airing every week,
I've
and then
got
I've
in
gone
60th place,
go on,
Rolling Loud. Where have
Rolling
you got?
Loud. They that
Yeah.
makes no sense, but you've got to get them roll references. That is the rules. And this year I've gone with when I'm cleaning windows. So we'll see what we've got.
But I have just discovered, and we will put this up, the Wednesday week in the Fantasy EFL Show league table, 61st.
Yeah, tell you what, we're gonna have to take that off. We're gonna have to stop that being a committee decision, because we're trying to do it fair, but I just need somebody who's got the time to take a look at it, study the stats, and make that their job for the season. I'm gonna have to delegate that one.
Put on notice there. 61st
Yeah, yeah,
is it's not relegation form in the amount of players that we've got in our league, but
good.
certainly could do with
Get
improvement. But
more,
with your
get
game
more
week 4
people in.
picks, yeah, exactly. But with your game week 4 picks, I expect that's going to change. I've got some players of the week that we do this segment, 3 players, one from each league, that I think people should be looking at, that are low percentage picks, that have had some good picks. I want to get your thoughts on them, Dan. The first one I'm going to go with, and it is close to home, and it wasn't because it was an easy pick, it was because he's come out of nowhere and he has started the season really well, and it's Millwall's attacking Romain Esse.
Hmm.
Millwall sit 22nd in the league at the moment, but he's popped up with 2 goals this season, averaging almost 6 points a game. He's 0.1% selected, got 5 points this last week. He's been Millwall's best player to start the season so far. I fully expect him to keep flourishing. Signed
And
a new
where's it?
deal
Where's he
today.
play? Attacking midfield, up the
He's
middle.
more like he's like a Saka. I want to call him like a poor man's Saka. He's like that
Hmm.
inverted right winger, likes to cut in, good left foot, good in the box, quick feet, likes to deliver the ball, but can get something out of nothing. And he's shown that. Scored 2 very good goals, one against Bristol City, and an assist that wasn't credited to him, but and against Portsmouth in the cup, and he's been our best player. So I've got him in there for the championship pick. This is where it gets a little bit different because League One and League Two, I think, is very difficult to pick. We did touch on one of these players, and I've gone with the Wycombe Wanderers midfielder Kieran Sadlier, who's in my team.
Hmm.
Now, Wycombe are sitting 16th in the league, but he's 0.7% selected, and in 3 games has 1 goal, 3 assists, averaging 9.7 points a game. It's got to be a banker at the moment, and with, as you rightly touched on, the fixture that they have this week has got
It's got
all
goals
the
in it.
plaudits to be a really good game. So fully expect him to deliver this week in the heart of that midfield for Wycombe. And then my League Two pick is Newport County striker Courtney Baker Richardson. Now in
Hmm.
3 games, 2 goals, 1 assist.
Wow.
Averages 7 points, 8 points a game, 7 points last week. Only 1% selected in all of the EFL fantasy teams, and that Newport County are sitting 5th in the league. So it's they're clearly on the up. They're clearly doing well, and 3 goal involvements in 3 games. That's someone I think that people should be looking out for. The schedule
Just
obviously is
just
going well
making
for them.
some notes. I've not sorted my team out yet, so
Making some notes. Okay, well I'll
got
I'll give you a memento.
a few little
Um,
sketches
but
there.
but yeah, look, 3 goal involvements in 3 games, sitting 5th in the league. That's someone that people have got to take a look at. If you don't want to get your Alfie Mays in there, if you want to be a bit different, you want to mix up. They're the 3 players that I think you should be looking at for high reward, because no one else will have them. So Romain Esse have
Yeah.
Millwall in the Championship. Kieran Sadlier, the midfielder for Wycombe Wanderers in League One, and Newport County striker Courtney Baker Richardson. Any
You
thoughts,
should
Dan?
call that section the craft beer corner. You know what I
The
mean? That
craft beer
because
corner. I like
yeah,
that.
the
It's good.
guys that wear the skinny jeans and the oversized checkered shirts and the teeny weeny
Yeah.
beanies and the stubble, and they only drink out of jam jars, and they only drink fluid exclusively made in a bathtub in Telford, that they always described as that they always describe as hoppy. Now, hoppy doesn't mean
I
anything.
love
You know what I
that. Yeah,
mean?
it's brilliant.
It's the
Yeah,
hops that give it the flavour. Stop saying it's hoppy. That's like
exactly.
drinking a glass of water, going, "Oh, it's really wet. This, yeah, it's really wet," and it's pronounced Bruno Fernandes. You're getting a
Yeah,
bit.
pronouncing the extra S is hops.
It's hops. Health.
No, any thoughts on them players, Matt? Is there anyone that you had in mind for anyone that you think we should be
Yeah,
players should be taking a look at?
the Sadlier one, I think, is it's Sadlier, just to give it a bit of a flourish and come away from
Ooh,
my
ooh,
my northern
sadly,
roots.
yeah.
I live down south now, so I have to pronounce all of the words. But yeah, him for me, I think that fixture's got goals in it, and I think
Yeah.
there's an opportunity where he can assist and get a few bits in there. He's definitely a shout for a vice captain role as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Go
Our
on.
next segment coming up is going to be all about Sheffield Wednesday, the Q&A that we've got going on. This is a segment that we do every week. It helps with the guests that we have come on, helps promote their channel, helps them gain more followers and get out there even more, and in turn helps us, which is why we're so pleased that you come on and these guests come on. But before
Mhm.
we do that, I am going to put you on the spot and I'm going to ask you for a game of the week. Who have you got as a game of the week to watch this week for viewers?
Oh God, you have put me on the spot. I've not taken a look at the fixture list. It was there was a game that I was keeping an eye on, and I want to say, it's Sheffield United are playing Watford, aren't they?
Sheffield United are playing Watford, yeah.
Right. So that one for me, because there's a point where you kind of like, you don't want to admit that Sheffield United might have a good season. You kind of want to go, they're done, they're
Well,
dead and
you don't.
buried, they're out of it. You know what I mean? They're coming down here with all their relegation millions, their rewards for failure. Bloody Sheffield United. But Watford are an interesting team because
Yeah.
Watford are. I remember collecting the sticker books back in the day, and they've been one of those up and down clubs for as long as I've been alive.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you think back to those days in the 80s where you used to get the Watford shiny and it had a moose on it for some reason. You're like, what is this? Why does this exist? And there was, and I feel that they're always on the verge of having a good season. I don't know why, but you just kind of
Yeah.
go, there's a club that's, the owner's insane, they're mad as a fish in petrol. But for some reason, they just change and change and change until success happens, and then all of a sudden they're in the Premier League again, and you're like, how did that happen? But
No, if that happened at any other club, they'd get relegated. That
yeah,
amount of turnover.
it just seems to work, and like they got promoted with the guy that didn't win one game for us in Chisco Munoz. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
how did that happen? How does it work? What are they doing? And I find that a really interesting fixture because I feel like that's a nerve settler. I think that's going to be one of them that will indicate how Watford are going to do this season, and it might be an indication on how Sheffield United are going to do this season, depending on how the game goes. If it's a right old ding dong battle, and even if it's 0-0, but it's a right proper tear up, then these are two teams that are going to do all right. And the
Yeah.
other fixture I want to keep an eye on is Leeds versus Hull City as well, because there's an element of Hull City. They're, for me, again, they're like those clubs that I mentioned. Just piss off. Do you know what I mean? Just who are Hull City? How did you play Premier League football? What in the worldwide avocado on toast is happening that Hull bloody City? You know what I
I
mean?
agree. I
Like,
agree.
I was playing Champ Manager 93, 94, and you were in the bottom division,
They
and you're
wasn't
always in
even
the
in the
bottom
game,
division.
was they? I don't even if I remember.
You know what I mean? Bloody
No, I
rubbish.
totally agree. And that Watford game will tell us a little bit more about Tom Cleverley as well. Is he the
Mhm.
real deal? Started the
Yeah.
season really well, and that's a big fixture. And if he can come out of that unscathed and get a positive result, people might start looking at Tom Cleverley and this Watford side, as you said, as a team that has had a lot of issues this off season and a lot of turnover with players, lost a lot of players, but could really be a team to watch. So no, great stuff there, Dan. I really appreciate it. And that brings us to the end of the game week 3 review and the game week 4 preview. And we're going to move on next now to something that is definitely your forte, something that you will not have to take notes on or that you will have to double check on, and that is our Q&A with the Wednesday week on all things Sheffield Wednesday. So again, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about the podcast, what is you doing, where everyone can find you?
God, we've been doing this for a long time. I think I was in my 20s actually when we started this back in 2010, 2011. We're into our 15th season now, and the game's changed. The world's changed. There's a lot more podcasts out there. There's a lot more media to consume, and there's a lot more Sheffield Wednesday media to consume. I think at one point since I've been doing this, at any one time there was something like 14 Sheffield Wednesday podcasts. But as you'll know, all you need to do is just stick at it, and then people will start notice you're existing. And then when I was doing a piece on terms of numbers. I was trying to work out in the summer how many numbers we did, and every 12 people in 100 at a full game at Hillsborough uh, have seen this show in that in 1 week. You know what I mean? Something like that. It was like a really interesting stat when you work it out. But yeah, it's just something I enjoy, and the best bit about it is that you're sat around talking to your pals. Like I've only met a couple of them in the flesh a few times. You know what I mean? We sit on
Yeah,
different stands when I drive up there from London, so you know what I mean. But I speak to them every week, and it's dead
yeah.
weird. But I'm obviously our main output's Twitter, because that's, or X as it's called now, because that's the best place to find middle-aged football fans shouting into the ether is
It
X.
certainly is.
Uh, the young trendy kids are all on Instagram, but that's kind of like our second vibe. And then we've got all the Wednesday dads and Wednesday mums still commenting on Facebook. I think I don't ever check it.
Well, all your socials will be put up in the
Yeah,
links
yeah.
anyway, and we put out our responses on Twitter, as you see, announcing what's gone on. So Wednesday fans, you'll be able to find all that information when the show goes out. But let's jump straight into Sheffield Wednesday, the team now,
Hmm.
and I want to start with your transfer window. The
Mm.
transfer window's not over yet, so this segment is going to be a bit challenging to answer because what I want you to tell me is like, how's your transfer window gone so far? What do you think that you need to improve on? Is there time to improve on? And who you linked with? And ultimately, really, are you happy with the business that you've done?
I got that's a hell of a question on this season, because normally the transfer window is a damp squib for Sheffield Wednesday. The last time we had a really exciting one was 2016 when we got to the playoff final against Hull City, right? And then since then, because we've missed out um, on getting promoted, obviously financial fair play kicks in, and then we actually went one louder and started the season with a points deduction because we
That's
overvalued
right.
our
Yeah.
stadium and sold it back to ourselves. But you know what I mean. So there's an element of, this is the first time we've actually signed actual players. You know what I mean, for a long time. So we missed out on Jan Paveda, who went to Sunderland, probably got a better deal, and fair play to him, did all right when he came in. But we've
Yeah. No,
signed
good player.
Ike Ugbo, that was on loan last year, did really well for us. A bit of a journeyman striker, if you look at his background, but he seems to be enjoying himself with Sheffield Wednesday. And on top of that, we've signed something like 11 players. Like this week, we announced Southampton midfielder Shay Charles, brother of our Northern Irish international reserve goalkeeper Piers Charles. So there is people coming in that we really like. Wow, what's happened to our chairman? We've all of a sudden must have got out of that fiduciary trouble that we were in terms of the stadium sale 4 years ago. We might have
Yeah.
paid that off, and now we can actually afford to get some players on the books. So when we had Danny Rule at the back end, well, since October last year, and we stayed up, and we had a great game well, as far as we were concerned, at your gaff last season.
Yeah. You
That
did.
was really a turning point for us. And um, and then since then, we've been really excited. We've been like, oh my God, we're going to win the league. We're going to be great. We're getting in the playoffs. We're going to be outstanding. Then we battered, and you've got to give them their full name, Wayne Rooney's Plymouth Argyle. We battered
Yes.
them at home opening day of the season. And then since then, woo, the brakes came on, and we had a battering, a 4-0 battering against Sunderland, and then we lost 2-0 against Leeds the other Friday, and they God, they could have had a hatful. They were so very
They
good,
look good.
and it was a real realization that, hang on, we might just have to settle for playoffs this year, lads. You just said that to yourself a little bit, and so playing you guys, two teams that could easily finish 8th, but also finished 19th,
Absolutely.
uh, is a because championship, right, is a is one that I'm looking forward to because I can't wait. I love Millwall away. It's one of my favourite away days because the best thing about it is that we've got no real beef with Millwall, right?
No.
But then when you get off that train from London Bridge, you get off and you've got that covered over area, and it's got all that barbed wire and all those big high fences, and you're kind of like, what happens here? What happens that they need all that? This is mint. But because it's two old school football teams that have been
It
around
is,
since
yeah.
the dawn of time, it's a really good game because I find with Millwall and a couple other teams there isn't that, because like British chanting's quite cynical, where it's like we're better than you, fuck you,
Mm.
no, we're better than you, you know what I mean? No, it's just two teams just cheering on their team, and I kind of like that. There's
Mm.
something European football about it, which I kind of like. So I love Millwall away, and that boozer up near London Bridge, is it the Busker? Is it something like that, or
You've got the bunch of grapes, which is on the corner just down at the bottom at London Bridge.
the big one as you come out? It's like
The
it's
one with
like
the outside. It used to be about the one that's at the Shard.
might be
Yeah,
anyway. But I'll, I'll
there's
be
too
there on
many, but there's
Saturday.
one there anyway. You'll be there
I'll be
Saturday.
there on Saturday, whinging about how much it is a pint, even though I
Yeah,
live here. You know what I mean?
definitely.
Just going,
Yeah,
yeah, I've got to whinge about something just to fit in.
no, that's right. So as we touched on, the transfer window is still not over while we're doing this segment.
Hmm.
There is another 24 hours to go. Are you
Yep.
expecting any more business in? Is there an area that you want to look to improve at?
We've been crying out to give Barry Bannon some help. We signed a big beautiful Swede called Svante Ingelsson, but I feel like he's a little bit exposed because there needs to be a three-man midfield in the way that Danny Rull's setting up, and it's just not working unless we drop the attacking midfielder and move Barry Bannon up the pitch and have a two-man midfield of a ball winner and a ball player. So a lot of people are clamouring for a defensive midfielder. If Shea Charles fits that bill, then we might have done our business. Excuse me. But I'd be very surprised if any more come in. But you never know with Sheffield Wednesday. We seem to be announcing a new player every about
No.
5 days right now.
No, that's right. And any outgoings then? Is there anyone that you're expecting that could leave the club, potentially on loan, maybe a youth guy or someone that just is falling out with Danny Rowe at all, as you see with clubs?
That's interesting you've said that actually, because I can see Marvin Johnson having a look around. There's been two names mentioned in terms of outgoing players, and that's Michael Smith, who League One will get you late double figures in goal, like
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
16, 17, 18 goals in League One. And teams like Derby, Bolton would be happy to get a player like that. And good luck to him because I feel like he's definitely got something to offer. And the other one's Callum Patterson, a footballer that when you look at, you wouldn't say he's a footballer because he looks like the shark out of what's that fish movie with Will Smith? It looks like one of the
Shark
sharks,
Tale.
and yeah, Shark Tale. Yeah, it looks like one of them. But he's come back after having an injury
I only
ravaged
know that
season
because I've got
last
kids,
year.
by the way, just for the
Yeah,
record.
yeah, yeah, that's what it
I
is.
only
Yeah,
know because
yeah,
I've got
yeah.
kids.
And
Just find that.
he's come back after the pre-season in looking stunning, like he's incredible. Bagged a couple of goals against Grimsby in the cup on Tuesday night, and he's been told that he can find another club if he wants one because his game time's going to be quite short. So personality wise, I like Callum Patterson. I think he's great to have around in terms of moving the team forward and trying to turn us into championship contenders. I can see why he might be offloaded, but God, the weight he's lost and the shape he looks in right now. If he proves the gaffer wrong, I'll be the first one to say, get in, go on, son. You know what I mean? It's great to have you
Mm.
around. But when I mentioned Marvin Johnson earlier on, there was a period where we had that incredible run in League One, and there was an opportunity to steal Marvin Johnson to go to Ipswich. Oh no, it was in the Championship actually. Sorry, my apology, I got my dates wrong. But there was a point where Ipswich were looking at when they were in the Championship, were looking at taking Marvin Johnson offers for £1 million, and we turned that down. And Marvin didn't play the next game, and the rumours were that he chucked his toys out the pram a little bit because that move didn't go ahead. So the back half of the season, he's now playing for us. He was the highest assist 2 years running, and and then he got into, we've come to, he had a redemption arc because he got dropped and sent away by
Yeah.
the by Xisco Munoz, and then now we've bought in Jan Valery and Max Lowe, both very good fullbacks, and we've got decent covering fullback. And Marvin will be the first to admit that he's not a defender; he's a wing back, and he's very good at it. But we just don't play that position anymore under Danny Roll. So I can see it wouldn't. There's not been any rumours, but it wouldn't surprise me if he goes.
Okay. And you mentioning Danny Roll brings me pretty much onto my next question, because you did bring Danny Roll in October, completely revolutionised Sheffield Wednesday. You look to be in a similar situation to Millwall, dead and buried at one point, and he completely changed the fortunes of the club. And going into this season, look to be very much of the same. You look like to be an ascending team. A lot of pundits, a lot of other fans of other clubs, including myself, look at Sheffield Wednesday as a team that could be that dark horse that pushes with this innovative style of football and this progressive style of football that Danny Roll brings. It hasn't started the way that you thought after the thumping of Wayne Rooney's Plymouth Argyle. We'll say the
Hmm.
full name for
Yeah,
the
yeah.
reference of the show. But has there been any inkling that fans are getting the ump with Danny Roll? We know what it's like. I mean, that might sound like a ludicrous statement for what
No,
he's done, but in football nowadays, that you lose two games or something on the bounce, and people are talking for your head, no matter who you are.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, Danny Role against Leeds waited too long to make a change. Waited too long. However, on the other hand, they were significantly better than us. It's as simple as that. Sunderland, bless Josh Windass. He made three real decent foul ups, and we were 3-0 down by half time. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that could have gone the other way. The complaint that the Sheffield Wednesday fans have with Roll is that he doesn't make a change quick enough. But then again, I think all football fans say that about their gaffer.
we certainly do.
I'm a little bit more pragmatic than that. But a fan can smell it going to shit a lot quicker
Yes,
than the gaffer. But the gaffer, in rightly so, will always give somebody another 5 minutes, because as soon as a player drops their arse and they get hooked straight away, confidence is shot to shit, right?
exactly.
So I understand that to an extent, but there's been a couple of tactical issues that the fans have been saying that there's no real plan B. But again, I feel like that's a bit of a cliche that football fans say, where they go, "This is our philosophy." But if the philosophy gets found out, there has to be a plan B. And we
Yes,
went with
agreed.
the plan B against Grimsby on Tuesday, and having gone 1-0 down, we ended up coming back and smashing them 5-1. That was the plan B. And that was great to see. That was impressive to see. I think it was a reassurance to the fans. Oh, disrespect to Grimsby, but we're a couple of leagues higher than them, right? So
Yeah,
we should have beat them, but we did it resoundingly, and we did it with confidence and class and panache. And all of a sudden you go, that's what we needed. We needed that as fans. So going into this game, it's an away game. It's a London away day. To coin a phrase from Neil Warnock, we're not going to get out to bloody London, are we? I just, I
well,
just,
save your prediction, because that's coming
yeah,
up. Save your prediction for that.
yeah,
But no, I totally agree. I think fans, in my opinion, are quick to jump on managers' backs, but that is modern football. That's the way it goes now. And you reference Grimsby there, and like you said, no disrespect, you can only beat the team that's in front of you.
yeah,
And to show
absolutely.
adaptation, to going behind, is something that you said that the fans want to see, something that will give you encouragement. So overall, I mean, the Plymouth Wayne Rooney's Plymouth game was fantastic performance, and I
Hmm.
looked at that game and thought, this is Sheffield Wednesday just taking off from where they left off from last season. This is all going to happen. The big one wasn't Leeds; it was the Sunderland game. That was the
Yeah.
real killer. So, in terms of your season expectations, what were they at the start of the season? Like, realistically, what did the consensus from the fans and from the media and Sheffield Wednesday? What was that sort of expectation, and has that changed at all after the start of the season that you've had?
I think the sensible fans would have said, "Listen, let's just mid-table. Let's get to mid-table. Get
Slow
who the
progression.
yeah, who the hell are we after the season we had last year? Which, albeit, you were in there at that tear up at the bottom of the league, and had it not been for Huddersfield being absolutely trash when it mattered, we'd have gone down, right?
Yeah,
And don't get me wrong, we've got some very big scalps. I mean, that win against QPR away towards the back end of the season really put the cat amongst the pigeons. But the I think the sensible fans, the ones that, well, aren't insane, would have if we would have started the season, would have gone, look, let's look at 12th. Let's just look in and around 12th, anywhere between 14th and 10th. You know what I mean? In that little gap, that'd be sensible. And Sunderland and Leeds were very good, and the Sunderland game was odd because literally three mistakes from one player and you're getting battered on paper. That
Yeah.
you see this 4-0 scoreline, but we didn't have anywhere to go, and it's difficult that you concede just before half time. You're 3-0 down, and as soon as you come out, you're 4-0 down. And you're like, what does the gaffer do here? Just give the
I
lad
know.
to run out, for God's sake, just get somebody else on the pitch. So mid-table. I'd take comfortable mid-table, and I've like you ever see those teams in the Premier League where you're like, what are you playing for? You're just turning up.
Yeah.
If you win that week, your weekend's great. If you lose that week, your weekend's gone to shit. I don't need to look at the league table because we're safe, but I don't need to look at the league table because we're not pushing for a Champions League spot. I want to be like that. I just want to
Like
be
a
like that.
Fulham
Yeah,
or
let's
a
get one of
Brentford,
them.
someone like that.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
two
Or
teams that we've referenced have benefited from the fact that everyone
yeah,
else in the league below has no money.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
that brings me on to the next point, and my last point overall is Sheffield Wednesday sitting in 15th, Millwall sitting in 22nd. You go away to Millwall at the weekend, probably not the top of the list that Danny Rowe or Sheffield Wednesday fans would choose to go to pick a result out. How do you see that one going?
I, I I was gonna say a Desmond. I reckon it's gonna be 2-2. I reckon it's early on in the season where you can't pick it, where you don't know what's happening. Do I fancy us to come back after that defeat against Leeds, and then confidence is up because of the win against Grimsby, albeit with a lot of the second string team in there. So we're gonna go at it. We're going for it. I think Ike Ugbo, gaining match fitness might cause your centre backs a bit of ag, but we're at sixes and sevens at the back in some respects. So, we've got Lowe and Valerie coming in this year, very good fullbacks. But all of a sudden, somebody who we broke our neck to sign full time through the summer in Deschamps Bernard, he's played the African Nations Cup, and he's knackered, and he's not the player that we had last year. So your geezer up front could actually have a day out as well. So I'm going to go high scoring draw. I'm going to go for a Desmond.
Ooh, interesting, because I actually did your preview, your view from the away fans, and hello from the other side. So Sheffield Wednesday, go and check that out, Sheffield Wednesday fans, because I I went for, and this wasn't a bias thing. It was I actually went for a shithousery 1-0 Millwall win, and
Brilliant.
purely because we're at home.
Yep.
It's a Neil Harris Millwall team at home. It's a difficult place to come. We're reeling. We need to get a result. I also believe that Sheffield Wednesday are going to come at us. They're going to pass us off the park. They're going to retain possession, and we're going to try hit on the counter. But after you say something, normally you reflect, don't you? You go,
Yeah, yeah.
"Well, is that really accurate?" And while I believe that, I think that Millwall probably will nick that. I think you're more right in terms of both teams' start to the season, both teams' expectations, and how it's gone. I'm going to go for a Desmond as well. I believe that
Come on.
it will end up like that. I think both teams will cancel each other out. I don't think this is the fixture that is going to change the fortunes for either team. It's a
No.
hard place to go. We shared the spoils last season, and I fully expect it to be very much of the same, very cagey affair. So, yeah, I'm not expecting game of the week. Definitely not. But I'm also not expecting a bore 0-0
No.
draw, sit there, go down 15 minutes before half time and stay there 15 minutes after. So no,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, and that brings me to the end of the segment, and we've been going for almost an hour now, and it doesn't feel like it because I've had a lot of fun. I appreciate you joining us.
My
It's
pleasure.
been good to get your insights and to get your view on probably what we share a lot of the same views on how the pyramid has shaped out over the last few years. But just again for the viewers that just tuned into the Q&A segment, which will be going out separately as well as out with the video in full for the Game Week 4 preview, just tell us where we can find you on socials and a bit about you.
Oh, we're on all the socials. Get in touch as YouTube is our live show. That's just the Wednesday week, or TWW Cast. We've got TikToks, we've got X, we've got Facebooks, and we've got Instagrams as well. We're all over most of them. Although I can't seem to work out Twitch, so soz about that.
No worries. And again, the links will be in the description when the show goes out. So go and check that out. And I think lastly, just for me to say is, Dan, thank you very much for joining me. And if I know you're down south, so
Yeah,
I'm not going to wish you safe travel because your travel is going to be the same distance as
yeah,
mine. But any
yeah.
Sheffield Wednesday fans travelling down, do have a safe journey. Enjoy the game, and we'll catch you on the next one. So thanks for coming.
My pleasure. See you later.